Hare Krishna. So, I assume most of you know the song. If you don't, the cell phones, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Not in here. Yeah, and then turn it off or leave it out. Thank you. So this is a wonderful song written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the father of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. And he revived, the history is, Lord Chaitanya, he came about 540 years ago. He appeared in Bengal. And he was Krishna himself. And he taught bhakti to Krishna, but on the basis of chanting Hare Krishna mantra. But he also taught on the deep philosophical basis of the Srimad Bhagavat Purana. And so he caused a revolution in the spiritual life of India. He went all over South India and he made thousands of Krishna bhaktas, just like we were dancing there. But of course they were crying and laughing and rolling on the ground and really experiencing the highest levels of love of God. So then his immediate followers, the 6 Goswamis, they wrote books and lived in Vrindavan and excavated so many places of Lord Krishna's pastimes. And those books form the basis of the philosophy of this Krishna consciousness. But over the years, Lord Chaitanya's movement was eclipsed. And for several hundred years, it was hardly practiced. There were a lot of people who claimed to be followers who really weren't followers. And in the late 19th century, Bhaktivinoda Thakur revived the actual genuine Krishna bhakti according to Lord Chaitanya. It's a wonderful story. And we could read so much about it in the books. We have a biography of Srila Prabhupada and many other books. So Srila Prabhupada comes in that line, coming down from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. These are all towering intellectuals, great devotees, pure devotees. And Srila Prabhupada came in that same line. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very learned. He was a magistrate, actually, in the British government and ruling. And then in the latter part of his life, he gave that up. And all the while, he was writing books. And some of those books are song books. And one of those songs is the one we sing before every class, Srila Prabhupada, to evoke the mood of Vrindavan and Krishna Bhakti. So let's see if I can remember the words without singing them. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. So all glories to Radha and Madhava. Madhava is another name for Krishna, means the Lord of the goddess of fortune. Kunja Bihari. Krishna, he enjoys in the kunjas. Kunjas are the groves and gardens of Vrindavan, idyllic, beautiful, sylvan place where all his pastimes, sweetest pastimes take place. Gopijana Vallabha Giri Vadadhari. So Gopijana Vallabha, gopis are the famous milkmaids of Vrindavan. Krishna is the most beloved for them. They all love him with heart and soul. So that's what Gopijana Vallabha means. And Giri Vadadhari, this temple is commemorating this pastime of lifting Govardhan hill. Giri means hill, Vada means best. The best of hills is Govardhan. And Dhari means he who lifts up. So here's Giridhari right here on the altar, and each corner commemorates that pastime. You see, he's lifting the hill. Girivadhari, Yashoda Nandana, Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana means he's the source of all pleasure for Yashoda, his mother. So all the different rasas, the relations with Krishna are there in this song. Yashoda Nandana, Brajajana Ranjana. He delights all the residents of Vrindavan, including the cows and the calves and the birds and the bees and everyone else. They're all completely conscious. They're drowned in the ecstasy of love for Krishna, which is our goal in life. And then finally, Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira means on the banks of the Yamuna River, this wonderful river that flows right through Vrindavan, place of many pastimes for Krishna. On the banks, there are many forests, and in those forests, Krishna enjoys his pastimes with the gopis and the cows and the cowherd boys. So that's what this song is. I don't know if you can remember all that when we sing, but that's what this is a meditation on. Drummer? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar the Shishi Mada Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar the Shishi Mada Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So I always forget, but I'm not going to forget tonight, that we have a regular Bhagavad Gita class, which takes place Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening. For those of you who would like to continue your studies of this Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srila Prabhupada. We're near the beginning of the 6th chapter. Which is all about dhyana yoga, and it's full of all kinds of wonderful instruction. And tonight we're going to be reading from the 13th chapter, text number 22. This chapter is entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. And in this verse, Krishna will explain how we transmigrate from body to body. Very important information. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 25th day of August, the Sunday feast in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're reading from chapter 13, text number 22. Now, some of you may know this verse. Many of you probably don't. So what I'm going to do, because the sound itself is so important, we'll do word by word. I think you'll be able to do it. Purusha, Prakatisto hi, Bhunkte, Prakatijan, Gunan, Karanam, Gunasangosya, Sadasad, Yoni Janmasu. Very good. I might get the forest and Naimasharanya here. This is great. All right, I'm going to chant line by line, those who know it or can do it. Purusha Prakatisto hi, Bhunkte Prakatijan Gunan, Karanam Gunasangosya, Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. Translation in English. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the 3 modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Purport. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the 2nd chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes one's dress or clothes. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a human being, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That is called Krishna Consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna Consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the science of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long-cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal, blissful life. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, just one intermission. Please, if you have your cell phone with you, please make sure it's off, because that's very distracting when it goes off in the middle. So there are certain concepts here that Srila Prabhupada is sharing with us, and I'd like to kind of review and so we understand fully what's going on here. First of all, the idea from the second chapter, we learn that you're not the body. The body is constantly changing. We've had many different bodies in the past, and we may have many bodies in the future, although that's something we have some control over as human beings. And we are the consciousness within the body, the conscious soul. They call the Atma. Now, the word Atma in Sanskrit can mean many different things. It can mean intelligence, mind, body, soul. But for the most part, in the Bhagavad Gita, it means the soul. And in the 6th chapter, also the mind. So the fact that we're not the body is a revolutionary concept. Because in the ordinary state of consciousness that we have, we're fully identified with whatever body we happen to be in. And one very wonderful verse that Krishna speaks at the beginning of his teachings to Arjuna in the 2nd chapter is he gives a wonderful little example. He says, just contemplate your own life. We can all remember when we're 5, 6, 7, 8, and we had so many experiences. If you reach back, certain peak memories come up. You probably can't remember everything. I know I can't. But we certainly can remember ourselves in that body. And it was a different body than we have now, right? And gradually, that body changed, slowly. And with it, our consciousness changed as well. But all the time, we're identifying with the body. There's a certain name, a certain family, a certain place we live, and this is what we consider to be who we are. But who we are is constantly changing, because as we get to be 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, you can't even imagine that you have the same body anymore. It's obviously changing in the mirror, and everyone. So what is it that stays the same? What is it that doesn't change? The knower, called the Kshetragya in the 13th chapter, earlier in this chapter. Kshetragya simply means the knower of the field of our activity. We're acting through this body, through the senses, the mind, all of the facilities that we've been given. And we should always remember what a rare and wonderful gift it is. The human body is rare amongst all species in this world. We have the insects, we have the animals, this is a whole ocean full of fish here. They have no opportunity for understanding this science. The consciousness is so covered that they must identify with whatever situation they're in and go through. They have no sin. There's no karma for these animals and insects because they don't have the higher intelligence. But because we do have the higher intelligence, we are eligible to understand the higher laws that should govern our lives for our own benefit and follow them. So we're responsible for our activities. So once we understand, I'm not this body, and there's two bodies. There's the gross body and the subtle body. The subtle body is the mind and intelligence. Think about it. We really live mostly within our mind, isn't it? When we perceive something, even if it's stub our toe, it's the mind that's perceiving it. If you happen to have, and sometimes, I give class here so many times, and my foot falls asleep. What is that when foot's falling asleep? It means that it's numb, right? It doesn't, you try to step on it, you may stumble. It doesn't act like a normal foot till the blood circulation comes back and it's normal, right? Everyone has this experience. So the consciousness of the soul who's in the heart, minute soul, this particle, irreducible particle. We were never born and we will never die, which is very encouraging news. It means that death is an illusion as birth. But that illusion can be very, very powerful. And we live in that illusion. So we want to break that. So the consciousness of the soul is carried throughout the body through the bloodstream. The blood doesn't reach the fingernails, so you can cut them without any problem. But if you clip a little bit of the flesh, it hurts, right? Because there's blood in there. There's a blood circulation. So this is a science. It's mentioned in the 2nd chapter. So it's a very important foundation to understand who we actually are. Every single one of us is called an angsha of Krishna. Krishna says in 15th chapter, Mamai vangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. O Arjun, every being in this world is my part and parcel. Angsha means part and parcel. Just like a drop of water in the sea. You take a little cup and you go out there and you get some water, okay? Well, the quantity of water compared to the ocean is practically negligible. But the little chemicals in there, it's salty, and it's a little sample of the ocean water. The sun and the sun rays. The sun is unlimited, inconceivable amount of heat and light is coming. And it's affecting the earth and all the planets through its rays, the sun rays, where there's a little bit of heat and a little bit of light in every sun ray. So that's who we are. We are rays of Vishnu, if you will. We're all little gods, godly. We have Krishna's qualities, but in minute degree. And because we're minute, we have the tendency of being covered by what's called the modes of nature. And I'm going to explain those right now, because that's mentioned in the verse. So what is going on with this nature? Obviously, it's a very, very complicated arrangement for where countless living entities can fulfill their particular karma, right? Every blade of grass, every tree, every insect is exactly as we are in essence, a living entity, an Atma, a soul. But there are various levels of being covered. Now, the mission in human life is to uncover completely our consciousness, to come to the point of God consciousness, divine super consciousness, if you will. So this is what's holding us back. This particular verse describes how the Purusha. Now, what is the Purusha? Purusha is us, is the Atma, is the soul, who's trying to dominate material energy. Actually, as Krishna explains in the 7th chapter, we're all Prakriti. There's Prakriti and Purusha. This is the science of this. Sankhya deals a lot with Prakriti and Purusha. But what is Prakriti? That's this nature. But we learn from Bhagavad Gita and other Shastra that there's different kinds of energy that Krishna has. All of that energy is Prakriti. In the 7th chapter, he lists 7 divisions of material energy that we're all familiar with. Bhumar, Apo, Analo, Vayu, Kang, Mano, Buddha, Devacha. The earth, the solid matter, we're surrounded by it. The liquids, such as this ocean, and our own body, so much blood, water, everything is there. The earth, water, fire, the electricity, fire in a fire, or your oven, and the fire of digestion. That's all part of it. Then there's air, gases of all kinds. That's another energy, another division. Then there's space. The space to accommodate all this is also another energy called Kam. Then comes the finer energies that we're so familiar with, but we don't often think about. The mind. The mind is like the center of the senses. The mind's function is sankalpa vikalpa, is always scanning what's good, what's bad, what's danger, what's pleasurable. Go like this. And the intelligence, which is highly developed in the human form, and that's the power of discrimination. Now, because the intelligence in human life is so developed, we don't have to simply obey the demands of the senses and the mind. The senses that eat this, go here, do that, enjoy this, run from that, it's danger, right? The mind is always coming to these conclusions. And when the lower self is controlling the higher self, the intelligence is just basically figuring out how. How can the demands of the mind and senses be met? But as Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, a very important section of this purport, it says, that change, what's the change? Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige one to transform from one body to another, because one has material desires since time immemorial. But one has to change that conception. That change can come about only by hearing from authoritative sources. That hearing, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and I'm telling you a very potent practice is reading aloud. Reading aloud, because that hearing adds to the power of it. That's why we chant. There's so much chanting. We can also meditate on Hare Krishna mantra. I used to do that many, many years ago. It's perfectly fine. So, it's a kind of chanting in your mind. But the most powerful chanting is together, dancing, in other words, becoming completely absorbed. Then when you chant quietly to yourself with japa, it's easier for the mind to surrender to the name, to concentrate. Both are important. The Sankirtan, Kirtan, and japa chanting. So back to this. So when we hear now the modes of nature, what is this modes of nature? All of this prakriti, the nature I described, earth, water, fire, etc., is moving according to the impetus of different living entities. There are higher beings in control of all of these little these aspects. There's a water god, there's a sun god, there's an air god, and all of these things. And so nothing is happening automatically. It's not like there's some automatic machine called nature that just goes on its own. There's living beings behind it, just like we know in our own house, right? Our own apartment, where we live. So we're controlling it. If we want to put a certain picture up there, we will. And that will create a certain mood or mode, right, according to our consciousness. Whatever music we play, whatever food we eat, wherever we hang out, we are creating a certain aura in there according to, but it's a living entity that's doing it. It's not happening automatically. So these modes of nature, now let's just run through those, because that's what this verse is about. As we choose to associate with the modes of nature, we make our destiny. That's what this verse is saying. The living entity, the Purusha, who is within Prakriti, and we're actually Prakriti, but we're playing at being the enjoyer and the controller, which is Krishna's actual role. We're trying to dominate. And that attempt to dominate goes on under these different modes. Now that will be explained in detail in the next chapter. But we're all familiar with them, we just may not know the names and how they work. The mode of goodness. The qualities of the mode of goodness is peacefulness, cleanliness, inquiry into higher philosophical things, not so much controlled by the passions, you see. That's you like peaceful things. You like to go out in the country. You like to be with people who are more thoughtful and things like that. It's a general mode of goodness. It's rare in today's world. The mode of passion, very prominent. The hard struggle for existence to enjoy like anything. Someone who I always, when I think of the mode of passion, I think of these guys who come out of MIT and Harvard and all these schools, and they go to Wall Street, and they don't mind working 80 hours a week. To get in, on the ground floor, and because they have dreams of making millions and even billions, right? By manipulating, this is the mode of passion personified. And it's always, and when they play, when they're enjoying, New York City. That's all I have to say. New York City, trying to enjoy the restaurants and everything. This is the mode of passion. The mode of ignorance is characterized by tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I know I should clean my apartment, but tomorrow it'll happen, Putting it off, procrastination, lazy. It's prone to be intoxicated, sleeping more than necessary. And it's not that these are completely separate from each other. We may be basically in the mode of passion, but eventually at a certain point you say, I've had it enough, Sunday comes, Sunday morning, let me sleep in. I'm going to sleep till 1 o'clock. I used to do that. That's bliss, just to sleep. I wake up, go back to sleep, dream. That's mode of ignorance. So you have the different modes, and there are different combinations, and it's very complicated. Those modes are where we live. We're living in them. The mind is affected by a certain mode more prominently. And then you form your life according to that. Now, here it says that Purushak Prakriti Stohi, the living entity within material energy, Prakriti, experiences the modes of nature, the gunas that arrive out of this material energy we're in. Then here's the key phrase, karanam gunasangosya. Karana means cause. As we choose to cultivate or associate with these modes, we determine our destiny. Now, how can we associate with the modes in the best way to get the best future? This is what we should ask, rather than just let everything happen by chance or whatever feels good, do it. That was our theme in the 60s. You know, it was a hedonistic mantra. But it may feel good now, but then what about the pain that comes from that? In other words, it's not an intelligent way of living our lives. But in many ways, that's the ethic that we live in. Because the whole thing is predicated on consumption. If we don't consume more and more and more, the whole thing collapses. If everybody was a harekrishna, it would be the biggest revolution in a capitalist world. They don't, they know that we're just a little, pinprick. They don't mind. But if the philosophy, which really is based on minimizing our involvement with a sense pleasure and maximizing our spiritual development, which is what happens when we chant Hare Krishna. A lot of things go on. When we chant sincerely, we're actually glorifying Krishna in the most wonderful way, especially for this age. There's a beautiful verse that's practically the foundation of this movement. Kalir doshanade rajan asti eko mahadguna kirtanad Krishna se mukta sangam paramajay. Notice the word mukta sangha is very pertinent to our verse today. So what this verse says, it's in the Bhagavad Purana, the 12th canto. There's several chapters describing the degradation of this age that happens as time goes on. Prabhupada would always focus on one because he was, he's saturated with this Bhagavad knowledge. So he remembers reading in India, what is it? Lavanya Kesha Dharanam. This is one phrase of one verse, which means that men will think that they look very beautiful by keeping long hairs. And he was in India. He didn't see that in India. He comes to America, comes to the Lower East Side in the middle of the hippie days, and everybody's sporting long hair. He says, confirmed. Bhagavad confirmed. But you have things such as you can't get justice unless you have money. Yes, you can buy off the judges and you can buy off the police. It happens all the time, right? So much corruption in society. And many other different descriptions that are common today. I'm telling you, when you read that chapter or those chapters, you're amazed that, wow, this Bhagavatam is for real. It's written 5,000 years ago, and they're accurately predicting what's happening today. So after this long description, which is rather depressing, because they describe it very accurately, but then he says, Kala Doshanade Rajan, O king, Shukadev Goswami, speaking to King Purikat, says, O king, this age of Kali is an ocean of faults. Dosha Nidhe means an ocean of faults. But there's one very special quality, very special benediction, because how can we practice yoga? In 6th chapter, we said, okay, go off to the Himalayas and live in a lonely spot, completely free from any association with the opposite sex, and sit there, and you have to sit in a certain way, and you practice pranayama, and then you think of me within, and you keep working at it, and Arjuna says, are you kidding? He said, Chanchalam himana Krishna pramadi balavadradham. My mind is like the wind. It's like trying to control a hurricane. I always like to point out, I used to live in Miami for 6 years. And every time this time of year would come around, like July through beginning of October, that's the hurricane season. And everybody is very careful to watch the weather maps. There's one blowing up now right in the Caribbean, if you keep track of it. And now, of course, they're even more severe because of the global warming. The ocean is hotter. So once it starts bearing down on you, coming straight forward, you can't do anything. You have to run. Batten up the windows, whatever, and get out of town. It's so powerful. It's like a moving atom bomb, full of energy. The amount of energy in these things is enormous. So Arjuna is saying, my mind is like that. It's so powerful. How can I control it? It's impossible, Krishna. And Krishna says, no, it's possible by practice. You just have to practice. And Arjuna says, okay, well, what if I fail? Then what happens? I gave up my life as a Kshatriya. I went off to the forest and meditated, but I failed there, and I gave up so now I'm like, I have no bearing, no place. I'm a man without a, So he says, no, don't worry, because you'll come back next life, and you begin where you left off. So nothing is lost. So Arjuna is not that enlivened by it. So then Krishna, he solves everything at the end of the chapter. He said, don't worry. Yoginam visarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhabham bhajate yomam same yukta mamata. That of all yogis, the one who's always thinking of me with love in his heart and great faith is the best yogi. And Arjuna says, relief. Oh, what a relief, because I'm always thinking of my dear friend Krishna. So then he continues in the 7th chapter describing to us how we can practically practice yoga and the mind can become attached to Krishna. So now the mind is not attached to Krishna. We don't know anything about Krishna, and we're attached to different varieties of sense gratification in this material world in different modes of nature. So as we associate with those modes, we have a choice. I like to point out, you go, 50 feet toward the beach, and you get the beer and pizza bar right here on the corner, which is very popular. They probably have twice as many people in there right now than we have. That was a choice they made. I mean, you can hardly go there without understanding there's a Hare Krishna temple here. But it's just not on the map for them. It's not possible. They wanted to come to the pizza bar. They were thinking of pizza, thinking of beer, whatever, and fine. So this is the difference. We have a choice. But to make the choice that's most auspicious for our future, sada sad yoni jan, we want a sad janmasu. We want the best birth in the next life. We have that freedom. We can associate with Krishna. Now, what's the advantage here of chanting the holy name? I wanted to bring it to that. Because when you chant this mantra, remember the verse we just said, there's one very good aspect of this Kali Yuga. Just by kirtan of the holy name, one can mukta sangha, become free from attachment and association with what? With the modes of nature. And then param vrajate, go to the supreme abode of Krishna. The idea is that it's all a question of consciousness. It's all a question of what we do with our mind. And what we do with our mind is determined by what we do with our senses. And so the whole key is the intelligence. By hearing Bhagavad Gita, and we understand the importance of thinking of Krishna, of fixing the mind on Krishna, then we learn that the easiest and best and most practical way is chanting his holy name. And then we learn about the Hare Krishna mantra. And we say, oh, it's very easy. You can, anyone at home, you don't even need instruments. I heard Prabhupada say this. Anyone can gather at home with just clapping and chanting Hare Krishna, and then reading a little Bhagavad Gita, Krishna book, or learn the art of offering your food and so forth. It's a practice. It's a science that works. But you need the good association of devotees. And we need especially the association of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada. We just celebrated his appearance day yesterday, very glorious festival. I don't have the book at hand, but we have a beautiful book we put out called the Vyasa Puja book. There's a few left in the store. And they're full of homages from all over the world, from the leaders of the movement and from leaders of little centers in Africa and Europe and India and all over the place, appreciating Srila Prabhupada's gifts, the same gifts that we're given here. And that is the holy name, the chanting, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gataranyata. This verse was taught by Lord Chaitanya to Prakashananda Saraswati. He said that his spiritual master taught it to him. He said, don't worry about studying Vedanta and doing all these extreme yoga practices. Here's the formula for this age. I put it into a little English poem. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life, in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found. But to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. So this is the most simple process, but we have to take it up. And to get that faith to chant regularly and seriously, because one thing in the 6th chapter that's very instructive, because it's all about the mind, the whole thing is the mind. So he said, one should not degrade oneself by one's mind. One should uplift oneself by the mind. The mind is the best friend of the living entity and our worst enemy as well. So how can we make the mind our friend? The mind absorbed in the details of this material energy, first of all, it causes great anxiety. Just to know what's going on in this world, nothing is for sure, isn't it? Tomorrow we could wake up and, after a few hours, a crash. The economy could be crashing because of our dear leader. I'm not going to mention his name. It's like what is George? What was that? George, one of the George Kings was the Mad George. They made a movie out of him. I didn't see the movie. That's where we're living like that. All over the world. People who keep in touch, and who's not in touch now? In the middle of Africa, they have the cell phones, and you have the internet, and you have everybody knows it could all come to an end. So it's causing tremendous anxiety everywhere. So how do we deal with that? We can deal with that by coming to a different level. In other words, we know from Bhagavad Gita that we're not going to die, right? Najayate mriyate vakadachan. So what's going to happen? Well, we're going to take another body. That's the cause of anxiety. But we should know that if we simply follow the simple rules that are given in Bhagavad Gita and taught by Prabhupada in the Harekrishna movement, following Lord Chaitanya, that we can deal with any catastrophe. Okay, it's time to leave the body. We knew it was going to happen. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram. Get the kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna. I'm just kidding, for now. Later we'll have a kirtan. That's the answer. That's the answer to every question. Hare Krishna is the answer. Because Krishna is everything. He's actually cares for us. This is the most wonderful, encouraging factor, is that the most powerful person cares tremendously about us individually. Then you may ask, well, why are we suffering so much? Because we rebelled. We left his shelter. The father has a wonderful place where the child can grow up, and the kid says, no, I want to run off to San Francisco and live on the street. So what can the father do? He makes sure that, he has enough money to call. He hopes that it happens all the time. It's exactly like that. So the father never forgets the son or the child, but the son or the child can forget the father until he comes to the senses and says, oh, this is where my safety, that's where my good life is. That's exactly what we are. So we know the clue. The question is how serious we are going to be to take it up. Now, I'm going to draw a little analogy here, which I've wanted to do for a long time, and haven't had the chance. And that is our own situation, each one of us, with the climate catastrophe that's unfolding before our eyes. What's going on? Who doesn't know about it? Everyone knows about it, right? I mean, in my small 30 years here in SanDiego, the climate has changed. It has definitely changed. Anyone who lives here a while. It used to be we had a little rainy season, mid-December to mid-January, basically, and that was it, you know. Then sometimes now it doesn't rain at all, then it rains a lot, and then, you know, it's changing. What to speak of the extreme changes we know about happening everywhere. So, okay, well, the scientists agree. We're not against science. There's a place for that, obviously. And yeah, we have to do something about all these greenhouse gases that we're pouring in. Well, why are we doing that? Because there's a very artificial way of life that's grown up over this technology. The auto industry and the oil industry and everything. We all know this. Now, why is it that nothing is being done? We seem to be barreling ahead into disaster. We know that we have to substitute these, because exactly of the same thing that we face all the time. Even though we may know the science of the Bhagavad Gita. And don't think devotees don't face the same thing. Unless you're a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, you have lapses and you have things that divert you from pure devotion. Otherwise, when we strike up that kirtan, you would see the tears gushing out. Some of us would be actually falling and rolling on the ground. Don't do it as a fake, but I mean, it actually would happen. The point is that it's true for all of us, But what is going on there? The lower modes that are like an infection in your mind, you're habituated to a certain thing, take over. And the illusion takes over. I can enjoy this, you see? Even though I know that it's going to produce a bad effect. What does Arjuna ask in the third chapter at the end? Who can say? Summarize. He asks a question. Attakena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha. Anyone know what he's asking? What is it, oh Krishna, that forces us, seemingly by force, to do those things which we know are sinful? In other words, against our own best interest. Have any of us ever experienced that? Has anyone ever not experienced that? So what is it? It's karma. You can't, no lying down. Sorry. Hari Bol? Sorry. If you need, you can use a chair. If you need. I know. If you need, you can go ahead. So, what is it? We've all experienced it. It's a desire, right? When you, I like to give the example of chocolate kisses. I grew up in the 50s and 60s when they were very prominent. They're little things of chocolate, you know. And every kid got them, and we all became addicted more or less to chocolate, you know. I was a chocoholic for a while. Chocolate milk, chocolate cake, chocolate cookies. So it's not a life-threatening addiction, but it's an addiction. So what happened? I wasn't born with it, but because I was exposed to it, you know, as many kids were, and I had a propensity to enjoy that, you see. But then you go up, oh, okay, then come cigarettes. Now, cigarettes were crazy from the beginning. I mean, as soon as the first time you smoke, you cough. It's not pleasant, you know, but it's all psychological. Oh, Humphrey Bogart is doing it all the time on the screen. I don't know if you even know who he is. He's a famous actor in the 50s, 60s, you know. And everybody's doing it. All my older friends are doing it. I got to do it, you know. And before you know it, oh, okay, I got it. In those days, the cigarettes were 50 cents a pack. You know, now it's $7.50 a pack. Hare Krishna. But, you know, you get addicted. He said, I got to have it, even though I know it's harming me. And then finally they said, well, this is crazy. So they put right on the package in the early 60s. Now we take it for granted. Attention, cigarette smoking is hazardous to your health. So you're reading that, or eventually you don't read it, you know, and you just light up. So what's going on? It's right out of the third chapter. You need it, the senses, the mind, intelligence, a place where that lust, that attraction, that specific desire is located. And then it overcomes your intelligence and says, I can quit any time and no problem. In other words, you make excuses. So this is the point of this verse. According to how we associate with this material energy, which is under the modes, you see, we can change our destiny. That means that we have to have the strength to say no to Maya, to those things that are taking our mind away from Krishna. But that no is not enough. There has to be yes. Yes to the Hare Krishna kirtan. Yes to reading this book and not some other book. Yes to turning off of the media, which is always inundating us with lower modes of nature. This is exactly pertinent to what we're facing. And the wonderful thing about it is, if you say yes to Krishna loud enough and determined enough way, then it becomes easier and easier to say no to Maya, which is the illusory energy which is also drawing us in. I'm not going to eat any chocolate kisses anymore, you know. It's just not, even now, if they make a nice carob, you know, something, then I offer it to Krishna, that's something else. The point is that Prabhupada was such, you know, so intelligent. By giving us this lavish prasadam, you know, and tongue is such a strong attraction for this world. It can take you straight to hell, or it can take you back to Goloka Vrindavan, depending on what you eat. So Prabhupada, he's an expert cook. He trained up all these cooks. When we joined in New York, right, we had all these expert cooks, and it was just like, that was the main reason you came back, you know. Yes, I like the Hare Krishna chanting, but I really like that prasadam. But you get both, and gradually Krishna draws you away, and it becomes possible, and it becomes to give this up to these things. And therefore, as you associate with the modes, you're associated with the mode of goodness, cultivating the mode of goodness, and you're making your future very auspicious. So this is what the Hare Krishna movement is all about. It's not just, one thing or another. It's a whole lifestyle. It's a Krishna culture in which Krishna, in many different ways, is reaching out to you and trying to attract you back to him. He loves us unconditionally. But we are so rebellious, we need tough love. That's what this material world is all about. It's tough love. That's why there's suffering here. But we shouldn't think that, I chanted so many rounds and now I came out with this disease. It doesn't work. Of course it does. There's a beautiful verse, Lord Brahma, who's the head of the Sampradaya. Krishna, of course, is the Supreme, but then he teaches to Brahma, comes down to Narada, all the way down to Prabhupada and us. So Brahma, he was bewildered. There was a certain, Krishna bewildered him. And he couldn't understand how this little coward boy with a little yogurt and fruit in his hand, in this little town of Vrindavan, this is God. He is my father, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, from which I grew. It didn't compute. So he said, I'm going to challenge his mystic power and see if he really is God or not. So Krishna's playing with his friends, on the forest. They're having a picnic. And the calves wander away. They also want to have a picnic. So they go into the forest looking for fresh grass. So the boys are saying, Krishna, we have to get the calves. He says, no, you stay here. I'll go get the calves and bring them back, So he can't find the calves. Brahma has hidden them. He didn't hurt them. He just put them under a mystic slumber. They're in a cave somewhere. So Krishna comes back. The boys are gone. So Brahma also hid them. Now he's all alone. So Krishna says, okay, this is Brahma trying to challenge my mystic power. So I can't go back alone. It's like I'm going back alone without the calves and he wasn't even a coward boy yet. He just was in charge of the calves, the train up. The mothers and the cows, other mothers, they'll all be distraught. Where are my children? You see. So he said, I'll have to do something. So you know what he does, with his mystic power that only he could do. He duplicates exactly every calf and every boy with all the little idiosyncrasies. Right, everybody's an individual. Right? You have a certain thing with the hair, that would have to be. Yes, everyone is an individual. So only Krishna can exactly mimic all the calves, all the boys, so that the mothers don't even know. Now, if anyone knows the children, it's the mothers. So then for a whole year, he's just playing as normal. So Brahma comes back after a moment of his time. One thing to remember, time is infinitely malleable. In the spiritual world, there's no time. There's no past. There's no future. It's only the eternal present. And in Brahma's time, he lives for, does anyone know approximately how? I always go through this. Give me a rough estimate. How long does Brahma live in his life? 100 of his years is how long? In the ballpark, anyone? 311 trillion and 40 billion years. Yes, of our years. So now, he comes back after a split second of his time. I wonder how they're doing. Already a year has passed here. And so he comes down. Balaram's puzzled. Even Balaram is puzzled. What's going on? There's too much love, because all the mothers, they love Krishna anyway more than their children. But now, when they take care of their own children, it's actually Krishna. So the love is increasing more and more and more. The same thing with the cows and the calves. So Balaram is saying, this is a little puzzling. So finally Krishna reveals to him what's going on. Then Brahma comes down. Nothing has changed. He's got this whole set of boys, a whole set of calves, and they're hidden away in a mystic slumber. But there's this whole new set. So he's bewildered. This is called the Brahma Vimohan Leela. He's the most intelligent person in the universe, and he couldn't understand. So finally, Krishna reveals, all the boys and calves turn into Vishnu forms, and everything's worshipping them, and Brahma realizes, okay, I was playing with fire, I surrender. And he offers obeisances, and he has these beautiful prayers. And from those prayers, this one is very pertinent to our subject matter. Tatte nukampam susamikshmano bundana evatnu katam vipakam hridvapkapube vidadan namaste jivete yo muktipade sadaya bhak. And what that means, it directly addresses what so many people have, the problem so many people have with believing in God. And that is, how can there be an all-powerful, who is your all-powerful, all-merciful God, and would let so many innocent people suffer? I once tried to convince my brother about Krishna consciousness, but he was set into this idea. You have to understand, growing up in the 50s and 60s, the Holocaust, what happened to the Jews in the 30s and 40s, was very much in everybody's mind. And so he said, the Holocaust, and we came from a Jewish family, proves there's no God. Here you have all of these innocent people, these poor kids, and they suffered so much suffering we couldn't believe. And they all prayed fervently to God. So where was the God? There can't be a merciful, powerful God. It's just a myth. He couldn't get through that. You see, couldn't get through that. But this verse says, for a devotee, a real devotee, that no matter what happens, he knows that seeing everything as Krishna's mercy and expecting Krishna's mercy, and whatever bad things happen to us, we should know is a result of something we did in the past. This is the law of karma. It's right here, you know. Now, it's mitigated. I mean, I learned this when the first time you cut up vegetables in the Brooklyn Temple. You may cut yourself, and sometimes you did after all this cutting, you know. Nothing serious, but, oh, you were scheduled to lose your finger, but Krishna just gave you a little cut. You see? It's minimized. and so, oh, thank you so much, Krishna. And then the key is that you don't lose your faith, and you continue to worship Krishna, not superficially, but rig bhag vapubir, with your heart, from the heart, with your body, your senses, and with your words and your mind. And one who keeps this faith, in spite of all of the ups and downs of this world, and that's what it means to be in the material world, is that there's going to be ups and downs, but you maintain your faith in Krishna. You buy a ticket to Goloka Vrindavan. That's what this verse says. It says you're assured of going. Mukti Bade means liberation at Krishna's lotus feet, bhakti. And Daya Bhak is a phrase used in Sanskrit to mean someone who's going to inherit some property. If you're sure to inherit something, it's in the will, you know, just stay alive and you inherit. Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, just stay alive in Krishna consciousness and you go back. But this attitude is so important. In other words, we have to stay enthusiastic even in the when reverses come in this lifetime. Look at Srila Prabhupada's own life. You know, he was a businessman. He had a family, and he had a plan. He was a devotee. He was, you know, so I'll make a lot of money and give it to Krishna. And meanwhile, he's serving this way. But Krishna didn't let that happen. He's getting these dreams from his spiritual master. You have to take sannyas. He said, oh, he said, I was aghast. I was horrible. I can't. I've got all this responsibility. So Krishna, you know, made his business fail. He made his marriage fail. Prabhupada just took shelter, you know, of Krishna. He went to Vrindavan, and the rest is history. But even then, on the ship and coming to America, I lived in New York. I know all the places he lived. Uptown with the uptown swamis who, you know, he had no shelter. He had to do it. You know, gradually Krishna brought him downtown, where there was more, you know, receptive audience. You know, made all the arrangements. But even then, there was health crises. Almost died of a heart attack several times. You know, and all this. But pushed on. You know, so we need to push through the inertia that we have built up and take Krishna consciousness seriously. Purushak prakatisto hi karanam guna sangasya. As you associate with the modes, you form your consciousness. So when you chant Hare Krishna, you're associating with the mode of pure goodness, but you know, Vasudev Sattva. And the more we cultivate that in our lives, the more that will be receptive to all the things that Krishna is giving us to draw us to Him. And so that's the meaning, that's the very great significance of this verse. It's a science. The state of our consciousness, when we leave this body, when the body breaks down, it's just a machine. The state of our consciousness will form the next, it's the template for our next body. So now, when we have freedom, when we have choice, what to think about, what to chant, what to hear, what to see, who to associate with, all of the things that we do affect our consciousness. We should make those decisions that are within the culture of Krishna, that are following the instructions given. And then our consciousness will be most pure, that we can do in this lifetime. We may not succeed in one lifetime, but Niyabhakrimanashosti, Krishna says there's no laws of diminution. He says in the 2nd chapter, he says in the 6th chapter. So it's most auspicious. But we have a choice to make every time, every waking moment. You know, are we going to do something that's moving us toward Krishna or not? So that's what this movement is all about, to give you the facility to move toward Krishna at whatever speed you can. And we're here for you, and the books are here, everything's there. So I'll stop there. Unless if there's some discussion. Do we have the mic? There's the mic. All we need is some questions. Otherwise, you know I'm going to bombard you with a couple of more poems. Okay. Oh, here's a question. Jai Narayan. Babu.
Krishna.
Bo.
that
point it right out. Yeah. Point. That's it.
The material nature, the goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Yes.
What is the source of that, and how do I know that how much of this I have?
Uh-huh.
And does it go forward in the next life, or is it done right here?
Are you talking about the modes of nature?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The source of the modes of nature is Krishna. Is Krishna's arrangement for how this material energy works. The next chapter, 14th chapter, describes in quite a bit of detail, the symptoms. For instance, he says, Rajaso loba evacha. If you're always in the mode of passion, then that will engender greed. In other words, you'll always be, thinking of how to make more money. It's in the 16th chapter. It's described. Those who are asura, far away from Krishna, they're always figuring out, how can I make this money? How can I make this money? And oftentimes you don't mind cheating other people or just walking all over them, as long as you get the money, So that produces the greed. Lust, anger, and greed are the three gates leading to hell. Right in the 16th chapter. Well, so what does he say? So that now the result of the mode of passion is enlightenment, and most important result is interest in things spiritual and like that, philosophical. Calmness, and the mode of ignorance, as we described, craziness, intoxication, procrastination, those type of things. So that's how the different elements of this earth, water, fire, ether, they're moving according to those modes. But the modes themselves affect our minds. Like if a certain music, let's call it sound. Sometimes it's said to be music, but it's just heavy sound, no melody. It's designed to bring out the worst in you, right? I mean, and they have whole festivals of that. So if you go there, if you pay your money, you go to those festivals, it's going to have an effect on your consciousness. You'll be in that mode. And you'll be more likely to do other things in the mode, like intoxication, meat eating, like that. Immediate, extreme sense gratification, and to heck with tomorrow. The whole thing of ignorance is living in the now. The more that you're just living in the now, it's more like animal life. The animals don't plan, what should I do in a month, It's like, what's going on right now? Where's the danger? Where's food? Where's sex? And then getting tired after all that. Oh, where's sleep? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's more, more concerned with those things. The more you're concerned with ultimate questions and what's the meaning of life, that's the mode of goodness. So these modes are going on all the time. Now, certain eras, certain yugas, we call them ages, are more prominent in the mode of ignorance or the mode of passion. As this age progresses, those lower modes will become more and more prominent until finally it's impossible to be devotees. If you're always running around trying to find safety, and for you and your family, there's no time, there's no chance for this. So we have it now. We have the opportunity now. We should take it. So these modes of nature, they're always prominent in the material world. But in the spiritual world, there's no modes of nature. It's all Vishuddha Sattva, completely pure mode of goodness. And so everything there is wholesome. Even what may look like, Krishna's stealing, right? And Mother Yashoda is getting angry at him and wanting to punish him and all that. But it's not like the stealing here, Prabhupada makes the point. His stealing is celebrated throughout the world. It's because it draws us into, it's loving, you see. So this is a reflection, a perverted reflection of the real world, of the spiritual world. So that we have to have that faith, because if we get too involved in the things of this world, it means that we're allowing the modes to take over our mind. We have to see it for what it is. It's a phantasmagoria. It's a play of the different lights, And this is a big thing, to realize the whole issue is what to place our interest in as the most important things. What's really important? If it's all simply bodily relations, then it's not auspicious. It's because, especially in this age, that there's so much turmoil in that regard. Nothing is steady. But if we realize that our future, our spiritual life is the most important thing, cultivating Krishna consciousness and the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and living according to it, that's what's most important. Then we'll prioritize that in our life, and we'll find time to make that central to our life. So, and then we'll find, naturally, we'll be drawn to the mode of goodness. Naturally, someone who's chanting Hare Krishna, associated with devotees, doesn't want to take intoxication. Doesn't want to, and oftentimes it's traumatic because you make a lot of friends and they want to know, what happened to you? Why didn't you come to the party? Oh, they had a festival at the Hare Krishnas. Are you kidding me? Don't you know they don't have any sex intoxication there? Come on, it's a party. So you got to make a decision in your life. All of us who become full time, who you're going to cut off and who you're going to make new friends. So that the modes of nature are always there, and but with our intelligence, which is our special gift as human beings, we can choose which mode to cultivate, and we should cultivate the mode of pure goodness by coming to the temple and doing service, hearing, especially hearing. Any other question, comment? Time, okay, it's after 7 o'clock. Oh, we have another one. Where's the mic? Thank you. It's on, just give it to her.
What I'm wondering is if you're on the spirit side.
Yeah.
You've left your body and you're on the spirit side. Do you think you have a choice to reincarnate, or do you think you have to?
By the time you leave your body, you've made your decision. In other words, if you cultivate Krishna consciousness and you have no more attachments to this world, and your attachment is all service to Krishna, which is practical, and you can cultivate, then you won't reincarnate. You'll get another body, but it'll be purely spiritual body. But generally, there's a mix. I mean, most people, human beings, they're full of all kinds of material desires and things, and that whole mix is described nicely in the 15th chapter of this book. We've kind of made our future there, and that it can't be changed once you leave your body. So that's going to be the template for the next body, and it's already planned out. As I made the point, is that it's all under higher supervision. Upadrashta anumanta cha. This is described. Upadrashta means overseeing. The super soul is there in that. So we have a certain amount of freedom, but the freedom is limited. And according to what we've done, just like someone who takes drugs when they're kids, they can do permanent damage. I mean, the brain is damaged, and they have less freedom than someone who is of good sound mind and can really turn their lives around. This is the way this world works. So we are, as I said, according to everything we do, what we eat, what we see, the choices we make, we're forming a certain consciousness, a certain mentality. And then when the body finally breaks down, that will be the template that is already set up for us for the next body. Now, some good news is, even a little bit, that's part of this verse I mentioned, Nehabhikamana Pratyabhaya, Svalpamapyasya dharma, Svalpamat, Suopa means very, very little. Even a little bit of advancement on this path, just coming to the temple, chanting Hare Krishna, seeing the deities, for instance, which is a lot, protects us from the greatest danger, the most fearful danger. You know what that is? Losing the human form. We can actually go back down in the species, and then you have to come back up. But you won't, because you came here tonight. Because you heard Hare Krishna. Even that little bit, well, Krishna, they'll come up with, that was 1%. If that's all they do, that's okay. They'll do 2% next time. But they have to have a human form to do it. So that's the wonder about it. But everything you do on the material side, that's all taken away. Mrityu sabhaharashchaham. Krishna says, as death, I take everything away. The billionaires, they all lose it, every penny, when they leave the body. And who knows what they had to do to become billionaires, They may very well lose the human form of life. So who really wins this lottery in the end? The simple Hare Krishnas, who keep going on the way back to Godhead, or the multi-billionaires who are likely, go down in the species. Okay, so we're going to end there, and we'll have a little kirtan in a few minutes, and then we'll have the feast. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.